What's going on, everybody? It's Chris with InsideTheU. Today I'm going to talk about practice. Able to watch 3 sessions today. It was great being back out here again and seeing these guys in action after the win against Bethune-Cookman as they prepare for Southern Miss. I want to get into some interview stuff as well. 4 players talked after practice: Tyler Van Dyke, Chase Smith, Akeem Mesidor, and Keyshawn Smith. But first I want to get into my observations, and I do want to point out I think it was great seeing for about a half hour after practice, Gilbert Frierson, DJ Ivey, and Isaiah Dunston, those 3 players were working quite a bit. Again, just doing some extra drills after practice. That was great to see those guys taking ownership and also just continuing to work on their craft. So I thought that was good. And then also I thought the defensive line were out here as well. Good seeing some of those guys. Mitchell Agude was a guy that stood out to me, a guy that I saw doing extra work after practice. And also the offensive line, a lot of those guys were doing a little bit extra drills. John Campbell was one of those guys. I've seen him do some extra work. You guys have seen it as well on the channel. Just doing some extra work, but really those guys were just kind of talking, it looked like, and just kind of conversating after practice. And also some guys were doing some extra running, some extra conditioning. It didn't seem like it was disciplinary or anything like that, just getting some extra work in. Different guys doing different things, punt returns, some guys taking some punts as well. Xavier Restrepo, Tyreek Stevenson, Malik Curtis, 3 guys I've mentioned before, but also Jacoby George was fielding some punts. He's suspended for the second game. After this second game, it'll be lifted, assuming he does everything right. But, it was just good that I saw him out there as well. Maybe he will be in the mix once he gets back. With the extra running stuff, I thought it was fun just kind of watching some of the guys kind of go through a couple races. It was kind of jogging, but just seeing Henry Parrish and, Elijah Roberts kind of going at it there, former high school guys. So that was kind of neat to see. But, just again, guys seem to be having fun with the work that they were putting in after practice. So during practice, I focused on 2 primary positions, and you'll see video of that later. Wide receivers were right in front of us. We weren't able to go the whole length of the field on the end zone, so I wasn't able to get real close to the other position groups I would have liked, but I did stay close to the wide receivers and just seeing those guys work. And then also the linebackers. Many of you are curious what's going to happen at linebacker. Are they going to make moves there, or is it going to be the same guys out there? So I was watching those guys quite a bit as well. And with the wide receivers, and I think it's been well known, you guys have seen it, you saw it in the first game, but Xavier Restrepo is really this leader. I thought it was good that he was just kind of going up to different guys and, giving handshakes and that kind of thing, and also just kind of working on the slot and some of these rotation stuff that we've seen with him doing that. And also Brashard Smith, and I don't talk about Brashard quite a bit, but he's a guy that looks good in practice as well right now, catching balls out of the slot there. He seems to be breaking well out of his routes just on air that we're able to see, and he's catching the ball, which is a good sign. And just has to take advantage of his reps, and he got a lot of reps last game, certainly against Bethune-Cookman helped, but over 20 reps for Brashard. So keep your eye on him, but also the end around stuff that we saw, him getting the ball in his hands as quickly as possible is going to be something that the offense will do. I think he will be featured in that role moving forward. In the drills that I was watching, Keyshawn Smith and Frank Latson kind of working in the same position on the field. And I think both of those guys, I still think both of those guys are going to have productive seasons this year. And I think, the thing with Keyshawn, there was a play in the game, and I wasn't able to ask a question today after practice with Tyler or, with Coach Gaddis, but he did kind of hint at it. But there was a play in the game where I thought Keyshawn Smith could have been used deep on it looked like a deep post, but they threw underneath to Xavier Restrepo. I thought if they wanted to, I thought that could have been a big long touchdown throw. And Gaddis mentioned that there were a few throws that they completed other passes. He didn't single out certain passes, but just from my vantage point in the press box there, being able to see that unfold, I thought there was at least one shot where Keyshawn got behind the defense and could have hauled in a deep pass. So I don't think that's anything to be concerned about moving forward or anything like that, because we didn't see a lot of deep passes. Xavier did catch that 52-yarder, but I think it's still in there. Again, I think Keyshawn and both Frank can get the ball downfield once they start throwing the ball there. And that first game is always tough because, again, they got into the trap of, not the trap, but just the focus of running, and especially not going to air it out when you're up big like that. So I don't think it's anything concerned, but I think when we talk about the passing game, or really, like I said, the linebackers or any of these positions, it's all about the build-up to the Texas A&M game in week 3. Will the wide receivers, will the passing game be on point and be ready for that kind of matchup? I think it's going to be very difficult to expect a lot out of the passing game if they don't show it the first couple of weeks. So that's where you're starting to see, you want to see these positive signs from the receivers in games. You know what you got in Tyler, but you just want to see it translated with the wide receivers. I think that's what I'll be looking forward to probably the most against Southern Miss. Certainly Miami should have run away with this one because Southern Miss struggled. They weren't picked to be one of these top teams in their conference there in the Sun Belt. One of the projections I saw, he's kind of in that middle range in their division, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, depending on the reporter that was picking them. So, it's a team that lost their first game to Liberty in 4 overtimes. So, we will see how the passing game goes. We will also see how the rotations go. Will Miami start to cut back on the rotations heading into this second game? A lot of guys played, but, once again, I believe they've got to get this team ready to go for week 3, because ultimately it's a big game and Miami's got to prepare themselves for that. And I know the talk around campus or the talk around the team with Coach Cristobal, the players are saying it quite a bit. All the assistant coaches, they want to be 1-0, and I understand that. I just think that's not my job or our job as for you as fans, is the build up in the big picture of that A&M game. And I think that's why you'd like to see a little bit more of the passing game, a little bit more of the balance be shown on the field without exposing everything you're going to do in the passing game and show everything that you have in the playbook. Okay, so let's flip it to the linebackers. I find it a very interesting position group because the top 3 guys that are playing the most, who got the most snaps last week, with Keontra Smith, Wayne Mistede, and Corey Flagg, there's a lot of buzz about and interest in the next 3 guys. Will they be able to really challenge and earn a spot ahead of those other 3 in terms of playing time? There's a lot of interest. Will Caleb Johnson, particularly will he be able to rise up? 16 snaps last week, 5 tackles, which was good production out of him. Chase Smith, only 4 snaps last week, but Coach Cristobal mentioned him quite a bit on special teams. Will he be able to get in the mix? And then obviously Wesley Bissaint, Coach Cristobal really raved about him, how he played in his debut. 9 snaps on defense, one of the highest graded players on the team. So that was good from Wesley, and you see it. It doesn't, you've seen it with some of the videos I posted in practice. You saw it last year at Miami Central. This guy has really good instincts, gets sideline to sideline, and he's got great speed and tackling ability. And one of the things that I'm picking up on with what the coaches are saying, players have said it too, is how well he's learning the defense, because that's where he's going to be able to get on the field. The physical traits are there. It's just a matter, does he know everything with the defense? And it just takes time. He's still a young guy just playing the 1 game, but Coach Cristobal said they're constantly working with him on a day-to-day basis to get him ready. And I think that should say a lot in terms of what they think of him, and we just have to trust his word. And I do think he's going to get in there. I think his playing time is only going to increase moving forward, because I do think not only is he doing things right out here, but I think he's going to be doing things right on the field with his production. So look for him, whether it's week 2, maybe it's just a slowly progress with him, but certainly many of you are curious about these other 3 linebackers, while the other 3 guys are looking to hold off those guys in terms of the battles there. Another interesting position battle that we've talked about throughout the fall camp is at safety, with James Williams, Avante Williams, Cam Kitchens, Al Blades Jr. in there as well. And I think many of you might have been surprised that Avante only played about 15 snaps last game. And, Cam Kitchens, James Williams, 40 snaps apiece. I think it's going to be up to Avante Williams to really do some things to impress the coaching staff, to unseat these guys at their positions. Because, again, James Williams, Cameron Kitchens, both were primary starters last year, although it was a different defensive staff. Those are the primary guys, and both of those guys played well. They both had an interception. So I think it's up to Avante at this point, that this is the bar that was set, and now Avante's got to come out and play well in his role, whatever that might be, and continue to do well in practice, and we'll see how that works out. But at this point, it's hard to say that it's going to change anytime moving forward with Williams and Kitchens there, and Al Blades Jr. certainly got plenty of reps as well. He actually had more reps than Avante. So all this is up to Avante. He's got to step up and play well and produce in the playing time he does get, whether it's on defense or special teams. And speaking of special teams, going back to that with Chase Smith, he just talked about how he really takes a lot of pride in that. He says he's on all the units. So he's speaking on the 4 primary units, not talking about field goal, but both return and coverage units there. So Chase takes a lot of pride in that, which I think is great to see. And I hopefully there's some other guys as well where they can kind of develop a real tight-knit group amongst the special teams guys, taking a lot of pride in coverage or springing long runs, like what we saw with Keyshawn Smith in the kick return game last week. Touchdown punt return with Xavier Restrepo handling the primary duties there. So we'll see if he can get something going as well. But I just think special team guys can really set the tone, in terms of really taking pride. And it sounds like Chase Smith is doing that. And once again, at all 4 different groups So I should have mentioned this earlier, but shout out to everybody that's watching now. You're the true diehard fan, so I'm going to present this, and it's just a little injury update on what I saw out here during the stretching and going through some drills. But the guys that have been hurt, dealing with injuries, saw them all out here, so that's a good sign. Jalen Knight and Zion Nelson didn't play in that first game, but they were both out here in pads. I would assume they're going to be ready to go against Southern Miss. I think they were being held out, and I think that they're going to be ready, and I think it's also important that they do play in this game, so once again that they are as ready as possible for A&M. A couple guys that got hurt during the game, Ja'Kai Clark, Leonard Taylor, they were both out here, so that's a good sign as well. And also Logan Sagapalo, you know, a guy that didn't play in the opener as well, a guy that was competing for a starting spot at a guard position at the right side there. He was out of practice as well. And do you want to mention Jalen Harrell? This was the first time I've seen him at practice. He actually wasn't in the full pads, the rest of his teammates were, but he, as I mentioned after the game, Coach Cristobal did say that he is serving a 2-game suspension, so he will not play in this one. We will see if he can get in the mix there, but there's a lot of guys obviously at defensive back. Okay, so I just want to wrap this up. Definitely drop in the comments. I really appreciate you guys' comments on the defense when we talked about that after the game. Definitely up and down. One of the things I do want to note with that defense, I was going through some stats. I put together a notebook for people on the website there that you can read, but one of the things that I noted I thought was really interesting in terms of the 41 teams, the 41 FBS teams that played an FCS opponent this year, Miami's given up the 10th most total yards. I thought that was a little disappointing, but it does say to what happened with the defense, and the 6th most yards per play, 6.1, definitely too high. We'll see if the defense can bounce back and play well against Southern Miss. Going up against a guy like Frank Gore Jr., Chase Smith felt like he was really confident, and they'll do a good job especially on the interior, you know, stopping the run there. So definitely check that out, but definitely drop in the comments what I missed. What are some things that you're thinking about with this team after week 1, heading into week 2? Some either the topics I addressed or some things that I didn't, that I missed, that you're definitely intrigued by. All right, thanks again for watching. Hopefully you have a good rest of the day, and take care.